What does God say about suffering? You've probably heard someone say sometime, if there's a God, how could there be so much suffering in the world? Why doesn't God do something about that suffering? That's a fair question. There is a lot of suffering that's in the world. What I would say is, first of all, maybe just to mention, that's not a real good argument for God not existing, right? To say that I don't like how he runs things, and so he must not exist. There's a lot of things that I don't like. Like I don't like childhood cancer, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? So to say God must not exist because he allows suffering in the world, and I don't like that, well, that doesn't quite make sense. But it's still, the question still remains, if God exists, then why does he allow that suffering? It makes it seem like maybe he's not a very good God. And that's kind of the question. Obviously God exists, but is he good? Right? With all the suffering that exists in the world, is he good? Well, here's what God says about suffering. He says, Romans chapter 8, in all things I work for the good of those who love me. This is a theme throughout the Bible, that the Lord uses suffering to bless us, to strengthen our faith, to draw us closer to himself, to force us to rely on him more. He promises again and again that he will use suffering for our eternal good. That's an audacious claim, right? That's an absolutely wild claim, right? Say that to someone who has suffered a miscarriage. Or try telling that to somebody who has a child who is sick and dying. Or try saying that to someone who was just diagnosed with cancer. Or try saying that to someone who has severe depression or anxiety. Right? That's an audacious claim for God to say that even the worst suffering that you have here on earth, that I will use that for your good. Why should we trust him? What gives him the right to say that? Well, what gives him the right to say that is that he has come to earth and experienced our suffering. Christianity is the only religion in the world where God comes and joins in our suffering. All right? He comes to earth and he is lonely and he is hungry and he is tired and he is rejected and he suffers pain and sickness and torture and ultimately even death. And he comes and he suffers all these things willingly. Why does he do it? Well, for two reasons. First of all, that your suffering here on earth could have meaning, that you would know that whatever you are suffering, it's not pointless because it's given to you by a God of love who will use it to bless you and in some way to benefit you for eternity. Right? So to give meaning to your suffering, and also then so that your suffering could someday end, that you could go to heaven where there will be no more weeping or crying or mourning or pain, where you will just have peace and joy and happiness with your God forever. And so this is what our God says about suffering, right? That he'll use it for our good, and that ultimately it will end because of what Christ has done for us. I hope that answers this question for you. Let me know if you have more questions. God bless your day.